Mickey and I are on the road and on our way to Arizona. He's on his way actually to blowing my stealth parking spot for the night, but we'll see. Cat's gonna cat. But anyway, I've purchased one of the coolest things I've purchased for myself in a while. A Nintendo Switch. Basically, I have a hard time convincing myself to get things that aren't explicitly needed. That was especially true when I was living in a car, which wasn't a totally voluntary situation. It wasn't this, I'm going to pack it all up in the car and travel the world experience. It was, this is my best choice right now. And so I did it. But there wasn't a lot of space, and I didn't want to end up paying a bunch of storage fees to store things, including things like TVs and video game consoles, which I didn't even have out here at the time. But just saying, it wasn't exactly an explicit goal to get back to gaming. Now, as for me, I did like video games as a kid. I was never really good at them, and right around the time like online gaming was getting really huge and people were into things like Halo, and those seemed to be the people that were calling themselves gamers, I didn't really identify as a gamer. But my first system was the Nintendo Entertainment System, and my last system was the Xbox 360. In between that, I have to say my favorite system was my Sega Genesis. And I also had like a PS1 and a PS2, and I liked both of them, but not as much as I loved my Sega Genesis. I think it was one of the biggest libraries I ever had. I also had a Sega Game Gear, which not many people have, and people criticize for its, not stellar battery life, but I had all kinds of accessories that made it work for me. And what was great about the Game Gear is if I had to go downstairs, like my game system was in my room, so like if I had to go downstairs or go somewhere, the Game Gear was something I could definitely throw in a bag, even if I also had to bring the AC adapter and plug into a wall when I got there. It was mobile, just not as mobile as the Game Boy, which is maybe why the Game Boy was more popular, despite not being as technologically advanced. I was a geek even back then in ways I didn't know. I did eventually get a Game Boy Advance, but it wasn't something I bought. It was something I inherited just as the Game Boy Advance was going out and the next thing was coming in. And the games were dirt cheap. And I remember loving that thing because there were so many games. Like I could walk into a game store anywhere, pick up a couple games, and I had this little mobile device that I could play anywhere. So I've had a number of different systems. I might have missed something in this rabble razzle, but even before I moved to California, that was sort of a part of my life that was phasing out. I felt like I was too old for it, that it was time for me to grow out of it, as it were. And as I've gotten older, I've been less up in arms about this need to like grow out of things. But logically speaking, once I was living in the car, it became less about this sort of desire to like be too old for something and more about there not being room. And people always wanted to ask me what kind of stuff I needed. And most of the time I didn't need stuff. I needed gas money, but definitely didn't need stuff. And that was hard for people because they want to help. And they want things they can help with. And it was like, I need less things. I need to cut down my things. When I change vehicles, it has always been about gaining something back that was lost. When I was living in the car, I didn't have a regular bed to sleep in. I just laid down the front seat of the car, and honestly I slept in that because it was too much trouble to rearrange things to be able to sleep in there at night. The little bit of things that I did end up just owning and keeping in the car. When I upgraded to the minivan, the thing that I gained was the ability to build a bed or install a bed that I could actually sleep on. And then when I got the Chevy van, the thing that I gained mostly, there were a bunch of other little things I gained, but for the most part, the biggest advantage to the Chevy van over the minivan was the permanent countertop, which made it easier to have a fridge. I had a mini fridge in the minivan, but I never found a good way to have it in there without having it in the way. And so with the Chevy van, not only did I have room for a fridge, I had room for a permanent countertop. So that was sort of the upgrade there. I sort of had a kitchen experience that was a little more standard and always there for me to use. And when I got the BoxTruck, I can keep my bike inside. I can actually bike inside using my bike trainer. I can transform this space into an inside gym, which is something I was very focused on before sort of my homeless experience, for lack of a better thing to call it. And also in roommating experiences, it was kind of hard because people, I had to worry about how my noise, my existence, my using exercise equipment inside an apartment situation I was paying for sometimes was disturbing other people, and had to constantly adjust around that. So being able to get that back as I try to reboot my fitness journey, being able to exercise indoors in my house that I live in, has been a valuable thing to gain back. And now I get to gain back gaming. So the first time I experienced the Nintendo Switch was with a coworker. I was working a theater show out in San Francisco, and he had a Switch. And during one of the breaks, he said, "Hey, let's hook this up to the projector and play." Now, really shouldn't have done it. The projector was used in the show, but I knew that he could hook up the Switch and have us ready to go for the show in enough time. And hey, it seemed like a fun thing to do. He was one of the techs, by the way. And so we hooked up the Switch, and before I knew it, we were all playing Mario Kart on this giant screen. Now, I kind of see advertisements for the Switch, but at this point in my life, I just kind of wasn't paying attention to where sort of video gaming and video game equipment had gone. So I didn't know this little thing, which was mostly a handheld as I understood it, and I knew you could sit down with friends and pop these off and have controllers, but I didn't know about its true ability to hook to any sort of screen, be that a projector or a TV. So this was a really cool experience. I also loved how his Switch that he had bought to entertain himself suddenly broke out into this group experience. Needless to say, I fell in love with the Switch a couple of years ago, but it was a pretty high price point for entry. This thing costs about $300. For me, sorry, that's a lot of money. But I really, really wanted one, and the Switch had stayed on my mind since then, and I just kind of wanted it. And this Christmas, after Christmas, I didn't get it for Christmas Day, but this Christmas before the holiday season ended, as I do, I'm perusing through the store after Christmas, and I decide to bite the bullet. Now, I will say, even though these Joy-Cons, which of course slide off the unit, they really, really suck as individual little controllers. Now, the Switch does give you a little bumper that you can put on here. There's a left and right button for when you're using it as an individual controller, but it's really tiny, kind of annoying. But even though it sucks as an individual controller, it's still kind of cool that you can suddenly turn this into a two-player system, on the fly, without buying additional Joy-Cons, which a lot of people do end up doing. You can turn this into a two-player system with a separate screen that's just sitting here on the table by itself. That's awesome. Got a friend? Want to play? By yourself? Want to play? You can actually just play with the Joy-Cons. It looks like this. Now, once I owned the Switch, what I realized is I don't have to just play with these little Joy-Cons in my hand. I can attach both to this little joiner thing, which comes in the package, by the way. I actually bought a separate one and ended up returning it to the store because I didn't realize this came with it. And it turns these two little Joy-Cons into a handheld controller, which definitely makes it easier to play by yourself while still having a separate controller. Now, despite that, I did end up buying also just a regular additional controller. I actually do like the feel of this a little bit better than the two Joy-Cons on the grip. And I like having this because now I have 3 controllers. So I have something that I like using sometimes, and the ability to turn this into a 3-player game whenever I want it. So there's all kinds of combinations I can do now that I have this additional controller plus the 2 Joy-Cons. Attached to the Switch, I always feel silently playing, whether I'm sitting in a chair or laying in bed. It always feels really solid holding the Joy-Cons and playing with the Joy-Cons when they're attached to the Switch, even though I prefer using either that joiner thing or that external additional controller. most of the time when I'm playing by myself, what I do love is sitting switch down, using the additional controller, and then just playing this way. But I can also obviously pop the Joy-Cons off and just have the tablet here charging. Now, if I did have a separate charger, I could charge the Joy-Cons separate, but usually I just pop the Joy-Cons on here when this is charging, and then this also charges by Type-C, which is great, which is the same thing that the tablet itself charges by. But the main thing I love about the Switch is Vanlife, as I've said, doesn't come with a lot of space. And this is your console. Just this. This is the console. All the other stuff is just accessories for the console. And you might be asking, well, what's that dock thing that I've seen in all the commercials? That is not the console. All right, so I ask you not to laugh at me. This is my dock. When I went to get my Nintendo Switch after Christmas, I was really hoping to get the gray one, the black one with the little gray ones, because at least then it would look slightly like it belonged to an adult. And when I got there, all they had was the Animal Crossing one. Now, Animal Crossing is a very popular game played by a lot of adults, actually, as well with kids and younger people and teenagers and stuff like that. There's all kinds of ages that play Animal Crossing. But you can't ignore the fact this looks like it's a toy for a preschooler. I'm sorry. So I really did not want the Animal Crossing one. Now, luckily, when the Nintendo Switch is all set up, it looks fine. It doesn't look much like any other Switch. But this is what you would use to hook it to a TV. So why is this not the console? This is a dock. And in that dock, sorry about that noise, in the back is your hookups. It's how you hook the dock to power, which will charge the Switch and any Joy-Cons that are attached. You have a USB port for wired controllers, and you have an HDMI port, which is what you use to hook it to a TV, a projector, a monitor, whatever has HDMI. That is what this is for. It is just a pass-through that allows the console, which is just the tablet in the middle, to hook to everything. This is your console. I can replace this. I haven't lost any games. I haven't lost any saved games. I have not lost anything if I replace this with another dock. In fact, there are third-party docks on Amazon. Now, you'll get mixed reviews about how well they work, but there are third-party docks on Amazon because all it's doing is connecting to this Type-C port and then allowing you an HDMI connection from this Type-C port. That's all it is. This is a bridge device. This is your console. And that's kind of amazing to me. No clunky PS5s or big old Xboxes. Just this little screen is your console. You can replace the Joy-Cons. You can play with different types of controllers. But all your games, all your save data, everything is centered at this, the console. By the way, the games, even though they come in those big boxes, are extremely tiny. They're based on SD cards, which I actually think is smart. Some people are like, oh my gosh, why is Nintendo not using discs? But they are really, really tiny and really hard to keep track of once they're outside the box. And so you have an option to download games or buy games on card, and you can add a micro SD card to the back to store game information. This is your console. Just this black piece right here. That's it. That's amazing. In my wildest dreams as a kid, I never thought I would hold something in my hand and say, this is my console, and I can take it on the road. The mastery of this console, because it is a full console that you can use on the TV, is if you want to play it like a handheld, you can. But if you want that tabletop experience, even without a TV, you can have that. And some people do have TVs in their vans and RVs, and projectors are becoming more and more popular every day. And this can work with either of those. And it takes up very little space on its own. I really like the idea of emulating the gaming experience when I'm not like laying in bed on something. Like when I'm laying in bed, a lot of times I'll use it in this format. And when I'm waiting for a video to export, a lot of times I'll use it in this format. But I would say most of the time, I either take the Joy-Cons off and use them in my hand, or I use my spare controller. One or the other. I very rarely, when I'm just sitting around the BoxTruck chilling, use it in this format. Now, the other cool thing that they've emulated from the Wii, which is one of Nintendo's most popular systems, is you can use these Joy-Cons just like the Wii, what are those things called? The Wii remote things? But you can use Joy-Cons like that for games where you can play with motion. Like for me, I have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. And a lot of those games, I can use them with just a controller, but I can also use the Joy-Cons and play a little bit like I had a Wii. And I never owned a Wii. Everybody had Wiis, and that was the point where I was like, I'm not buying any more game consoles. So I never owned a Wii. So getting to emulate that Wii experience with the Nintendo Switch has been super fun. Now, some people are going to be like, Dawn, you live van life. You need to go out and hike and all this other stuff and canoe and all this other stuff. But that ignored something that's just true for life. Forget the van part. There's downtime in everybody's life. Like right now, I'm parked in a parking lot. I'm on my way to Arizona. I'm probably not going to be stopping and seeing the sights and seeing a bunch of beautiful stuff. I'm probably just going to be parking at rest areas, parking lots, Walmarts. And when I have downtime where I can't really do anything that important and there's nothing else to do, times where honestly, I'd just be scrolling my phone. I'd rather be playing video games. And now I can, and I really enjoy that. There's also when I have a video exporting. When I have a video exporting, I don't like to go super far from the computer. Sometimes weird stuff happens. So I'd rather be sitting right beside it. I also have a cat, and to be quite honest, if I walk too far away from the computer while things are exporting, he might jump on the laptop. And so it's more secure for me to be right near the laptop. But when an export is going to take like 2 hours, 3 hours, and that's not even including upload time, it's nice to be able to have something to do. And what I'm finding is the Switch really fills in that space really, really well. Also, when you have to do things like go to the auto shop, either for repairs or maintenance, sometimes you're just sitting in a lobby for a long time, and sometimes mostly I fall victim to what's ever on the TV there. But now I have the option of playing my Switch to kill time. There's all these situations where time just needs to be killed. 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And so having the Switch has been really, really useful in those times. And it makes those times fun. My hand is in and eyes are engaged in hand-eye coordination. My brain is engaged in solving problems. And it feels much better than just sitting there or vegging out watching TV or scrolling through my phone. Speaking of cell phones, of course you can game on a phone. Like, there are tons of games for the phone, but I find I've never liked that experience. The only way I would like it is kind of what I'm doing with Switch, where I would have it sitting up on a table and then I would have a joystick. But what the cell phone doesn't have is an integrated experience where I can integrate the phone into the controllers and have it be a fully portable device without all kinds of weirdness that may or may not work. Just gaming on a cell phone by itself, I've never been like a Candy Crush type person, and that kind of stuff just doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather have Mario on the Switch than try to play some sort of game on my cell phone. But one of the big things about the Switch that I love is the thing that made me want to buy one in the first place. And that was how quickly this single device turned into a group experience for a bunch of us in the theater. Here's the truth. I'm extraordinarily bad in group situations. People think because I'm on YouTube that I am this super social person that's going to go out and be this social butterfly. But the truth is, if you put me in a party, I'm going to be the wallflower. When I am in party or group type situation, I honestly would rather have a job. Like if that's watching the door, if that's handing out hors d'oeuvres, if that's serving drinks, I always prefer that because if I can focus on that, it's a bridge of a way to interact with people that doesn't leave me as stressed out or as likely to go float off into a corner somewhere and hide. I hate work parties. I hate all that kinds of stuff. Like, it stresses me out to go into it. Like, you know, the good thing about RTR, which I'm going to now, is they have these set classes that you can go to. So again, a bridge is being created to talk to people. It's not about walking into these random large groups and being expected to mingle. I am terrible at mingling. And so what I love about the Switch is it is a way to create group experiences, to have something to center a group experience around. There's nothing like a game on Mario Kart or Smash Brothers, especially to people who are into gaming, that's more exciting or more fun. And I just love the idea that this little device, just like it did in the theater when it first impressed me, can instantly become a group experience and then instantly go back to just being a portable for me. And that's why I didn't get the Switch Lite. There is a Switch Lite which doesn't have the removable Joy-Cons. It is one solid portable device, and it's about $100 less than the regular Switch. Now, even though this was a special edition Switch, maybe because they didn't sell enough of them over Christmas, I did get this for the pretty much regular price of the Switch. But a lot of the accessories were on sale when I went to buy the Switch, so I kind of am justifying probably money I shouldn't have spent that way. Some of you guys might be laughing at me right now, be like, Dawn, seriously, you bought that thing? Like, especially when you saw this thing, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I couldn't find the regular Switch. But you know what, I can later on I might just sell this and replace it with the plain black one, and no one will know my shame except everybody who saw this video. But as I head to this event, RTR, Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, this big Nomad event that has gone on for a number of years now, I do wonder if this device will ever do the thing that I bought it to do, which is to be able to instantly break out into these group experiences. I can't see me forcing it into it, but there may be a situation where it's like, I don't know what to do, break out the Switch. And we'll see. I don't know. But either way, I've just really enjoyed this. I've played this like every day since I've bought it. The funny thing is I immediately downloaded a lot of the old games, like the original Super Mario Brothers, the first Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, those are some of the first games I played on the Switch. I do have, like I said, 3 Switch games, but those are the games I played first, and honestly are still the games I played the most, just games I remember from my childhood. And I consider the fact that I now have Sonic and Mario on the same device absolutely epic. So how do you feel about this purchase? Do you think I'm a total lame nerd who wasted my money? Honestly, this was a thick chunk of change for me. I got the Switch, the additional controller, a case, and 3 games, all on sale. But I have enjoyed it so much. Anyway, happy 2022. So I can't believe I've entered yet another year on YouTube. It is now 2022, and I guess I started this channel, what, in like 2018? Oh my gosh. How have I been on the platform this long? So you know what I gotta ask for just to kind of keep going, and I'm gonna ask for your likes and your comments in the comment section. As with many people here on this platform, I'm a bit of a slave to the algorithm to stay relevant on the platform, and so all of your likes and comments are appreciated. As always, I'd like to thank the people who throw in additional support on Patreon. As of this video, this list has been updated for the beginning of 2022. Happy 2022 to everyone. I am continuing down the road to Arizona and RTR.